From Anshe Sfard, Bethel Emeth Congregation, it's time to take 10 minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of Parshat Lech Lecha, the war against the Jews. We dedicate our shiur today to the passing of Moreno Maran, Ravad Yosef, Rabban Shel Kol Yisrael, one of the great leaders of Israel, past Sephardic chief rabbi of Israel, and more significantly, one of the great scholars of our past generation, and one of the great inspirational leaders for the Sephardic community and for all Jewry. Yehi Zichro Baruch, his memory be a blessing for us all. In terms of Parshat Lech Lecha, there seems to be a rude interruption between the story of the migration of Avraham and his family to the land of Israel, and later on the story of the Brit, the covenant of God and Avraham. In between, we have the story of the war of the 5 kings against the 4 kings. The 4 kings against the 5 kings. Who cares? What is this doing here? Why the rude interruption? What's going on? If we look carefully, we discover that this is not an interruption. This is not some minor story. This is the essential story about Avraham Avinu, about the Jewish people in general. As Rav Shamshon Rav Hirsch points out, this is one of the great moments of Avraham Avinu ever. When we see that the 4 nations from the north, from Iraq, from Babylonia, from the Persia area, come to attack the local 5 kings of the local Sodom and Amorah and the general area of Avraham Avinu, of the land of Canaan. What's going on, according to the Zohar, is that these people are trying to lure Avraham into a war. It's an attack against Avraham, who has come to bring God and Torah and ethics and morality to the world. It's a war against the Jews. He says that the whole war, says that Torah more, quoting the Zohar, the whole war is against Avraham for the great hatred they have against him. Where do we see that there's great hatred against Avraham? We see at the beginning of the Parsha, Umkalel Cha'or, those who curse you will be cursed. Who's cursing Avraham? What kind of enemies does he have? He's just a private citizen, isn't he? And here we discover, says Rabbeinu Bachye, that no, Avraham had many enemies. Says the Ramban, Nachmanides, Avraham was a hated man. They tried to throw him in the furnace, says the Midrash. And when we see that the Torah says, Umkalel Cha'or, there are many enemies against Avraham. Why are there enemies? Because Avraham and the Jewish people represent the Torah, and the Torah represents morality and God. And as long as the Jews are downtrodden, as long as the Jews are defeated, then there's no God, there's no morality, there's no story of Abraham, Sinai, and the Torah. If you can only defeat the Jews, then you can do whatever you want, then all bets are off. We find this war against the Jews over and over again. It's the war of the end of days in Zechariah. It's the war of the end of days in Yechezkel. And we find it in Tehillim chapter 2. Yitzvatvu Malchei Eretz, all the nations of the world gathered together. Nanatrat Mosor Temo. Let's take off Avotemo. Let's remove the shackles of the Jewish people. Those Jewish people, they're such a bore. They bring to the world all the shackles of morality. If only we could assassinate them, if only we could destroy them, then the entire notion of Torah, of morality, of God itself would be destroyed. That's the image. Rav Mital Zatzal was speaking about the various negotiations and discussions about, in those days in the 80s, giving back to the Sinai and all sorts of different discussions. He said, let there be no mistake about it. Every war against the Jewish people is a war about Jerusalem. It's a war about God. It's a war about everything for which we stand. The Sfas Emes says that where did Avraham get the power to fight against these nations? He says that Quotes the verse from Kohelet, which the Midrash quotes, that ultimately Avraham takes all this negative energy, all the nations who are trying to come and attack the Jews, and he takes all that unity, the wonderful unity of the world. But theirs is directed to build towers in the heaven for no reason at all. Theirs is directed to attack the Jews. And he takes all that power and that energy, and he flips it around like a good karate master, takes the enemy the energy that's coming at them, and throws it right back at them. And that's the power of Avraham. He was, some commentaries have pointed out, he was a Gibor Chayil. The Rabbi says this story is to tell us what a great hero he was. Some would see it as a symbol that Avraham is no weakling. Avraham, the Jewish people, the idea of morality is not some weak link in the world. It's not some sort of idea of passivity and weakness. But Avraham shows that with morality and with God is great strength. But there's another idea, a countervailing idea. Rav Asher Zelig, a victim of the Holocaust, a Hungarian rabbi, wrote that you know how Avraham defeated the enemy? He defeated them with his greatness, with his righteousness. Just Avraham walking in the proximity of all these nations, they fell by the wayside. Ultimately, the message of Avraham, the power of God and Torah, is so powerful that as he marches forward, others wither away. We, the Jewish people, the land of Israel, the state of Israel, represent a powerful idea. Not that we don't always understand it, we don't always get it ourselves, but others, nations of the world, when the nations of the world look at Israel, they are in wonderment, their mouths drop open. They will look at the accomplishments of the modern state of Israel, the Jewish people have done in the last 100 years in the land of Israel. They're absolutely amazed. Sometimes we ourselves don't appreciate it. But the truth is that the power of the message of the Jewish people, the power of our story, the story of the Jewish people in the last thousands of years, in the last century, is such a powerful message that it makes everyone drop in awe of our power. It's not a power necessarily of physical power. It's a power of an idea which is often under attack, an idea which Avraham represented, an idea which ultimately will bring salvation to the world. There's all that negative energy, all those who want to attack us. If we take that negative energy, we turn it into the unity of the world. Unfortunately, it's often against us, but it's the power of the entire world fighting, resisting its own conscience. If we can turn that around, we can find the power of the world to unite with Avraham, to indeed be inspired by the message of Avraham, the message of Torah, and then one day all the nations of the world will come and they will bow down in front of God and recognize the power we all have, not to attack the Jews, but to unite together the message of the Jewish people, the message of God, Torah, and Sinai. And with that, we'll have the greatest power you can possibly imagine. With that, the world will be redeemed. Thank you for joining us here, the Anshe Sephardi Beth Lehem congregation here in Memphis, Tennessee, for our discussion of Parsha Lech Lecha. Join us each week for a discussion of the Parsha, various holidays, and our videos on how to, various mitzvot, and how to do them. Thanks to Jason Leftwoods, our producer, and thanks for joining us.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein. To learn more, visit ASBEE.org.